I am pleased to welcome you to another virtual UCS Wellness event. This presentation is the second in a series of social, emotional health, and wellness sessions designed to know the why. Knowing why you are feeling the way you are or why someone is behaving a certain way empowers you to make a change or to be more understanding. This session's discussion, You Matter, focuses on the importance of social, emotional, mental wellness in our children. Studies show that good mental health allows children and young people to develop resilience and coping skills they can use throughout their lives. I would like to thank the UCS professionals who created this informative presentation to help us all understand that emotional well-being of children is just as important as their physical well-being. Utica cares and supports the wellness of our students, families, and community. I want to thank each of you for watching.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Welcome from the Utica Community Schools Wellness Team. My name is Kim Tawarski, and I have been a counselor at Shelby Junior High for 22 years. Our team has developed this presentation to support our community during this difficult time. Tonight's presentation is entitled, You Matter. We will focus on providing our parents and caregivers with ways to support our students. You will hear from psychologists, social workers, and counselors from within the district. We really appreciate your time. Catherine Livingston will begin our presentation.
Hello, I'm Catherine Livingston. I have been a UCS high school counselor for 21 years. I am happy to have this opportunity to work with an amazing group of school mental health providers and be part of this presentation addressing the importance of understanding our children's emotional and mental health needs. Approximately 1 out of 5 children in America will be diagnosed with a mental health condition. As parents and caregivers, it is easy for us to identify our child's physical needs: food, clothing, routine, exercise, and education. However, we struggle when we have to identify their mental and emotional needs. By identifying and addressing the emotional and mental health needs of our children, we are giving them the opportunity to think clearly, develop socially, and learn new skills and guide them to become healthy, stable adults. We know what it takes to keep a child physically healthy, but do we know what it takes to develop and maintain a good emotional and mental health in our child? These needs in a child may not be as obvious. Mental health in young children can be associated with various behaviors that are listed on this slide. The first thing you as a parent or caregiver need to know is that your child's emotional and mental health needs matter. We need to treat a child's mental and emotional health just like we do their physical health, by giving it thought and attention, and when needed, professional help. Untreated mental health needs among children and youth not only affects them as an individual, but also their family, their school, their community, workplace, and the nation as a whole. You have heard on why it is important to meet the emotional and mental health needs of our children. Now it's time to take a step further and learn the signs that tell us a child is struggling. Melissa will share with you the signs for our children in the primary grades.
Thank you, Catherine. I am Melissa Mandel, and I have been a UCS school psychologist for 23 years. Thank you again to all the parents and caregivers for joining us today for this important topic. When our children scrape their knee or break a bone, it's easy to recognize that they need help, but it can be different when a child is struggling emotionally. A caregiver might recognize that something is not quite right, but may not know exactly what to look for. Today, we want to give you a list of indicators or signs that might suggest that there is cause for concern. We're going to start by focusing on our younger students. And while there is overlap between elementary and secondary indicators, there are some differences for our younger students. Younger children may not be able to tell caregivers that they're in distress or even be able to recognize it in themselves. And while it may be normal for your child to experience some of the following signs from time to time, if you see a sudden change in what is typical for your child, or if they're having a hard time getting through their daily routine or daily activities, it may be a sign that they're experiencing a level of distress that is cause for concern. So we are looking for signs that are not typical of your child's developmental stage or their age, and are not typical of what is normal for them from day to day. And also what might be an excess of what would be an expected reaction for a stressful situation. You may become concerned if these signs are lasting for a long time or do not seem to be improving even after trying to help. If we look at the next slide, we can begin to look at some of those indicators. As I mentioned, we're focusing on changes in behavior, so it is new or worsening symptoms that we might be noticing. Younger children are often not able to tell caregivers they're distressed, but caregivers may notice changes in behavior related to development or their daily routines. You may notice your child's development seems to be regressing or going backwards. One example of this is bedwetting. If your child suddenly begins to wet the bed again or wets the bed with increased frequency, it may be cause for concern. Changes in sleeping habits can also suggest distress. You may notice nightmares, sleepwalking, increased fears of going to sleep, or increased fears of sleeping alone, as well as difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Changes in eating habits are another sign your child may be experiencing increased distress. You may notice your child eating more than usual, or eating much less than usual, or even refusing to eat altogether. All of these can be signs that your child is experiencing an increased level of distress that might be cause for concern. And now Darcyeisenberg will share some more of these important indicators with us.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm Darcyeisenberg, a school social worker with Utica Schools for the past 24 years. And I'm going to continue to discuss indicators of elementary students who may be showing signs of that they're in distress. And as Melissa had shared, that first of all, we're looking at a change in behavior with your students, not something that you have seen with them over time. Children use behavior as a means to communicate, as Melissa had previously said. Younger children are sometimes unable to identify the emotions that they're experiencing and may lack the actual language skills to express to you what it is that they are feeling. When we see a change in behavior, there's often a function or a reason behind this change. Some indicators that a young child might be experiencing an increase in distress is when we notice a pattern of change in their activity or level of mood. For example, there might be a dramatic increase in activity level, such as hyperactivity, or there may be a dramatic decrease in the level of activity, such as low energy or low motivation. Again, this is not a child who has suffered from attention deficit disorder for years. This is a change in activity level. A concerning change of mood may look like a lengthy period of sadness with or without obvious reasons. Mental health experts consider 2 or more weeks to be a lengthy period of change. The change in your child's typical temperament with sudden irritability or anger or aggression may also be an indicator that your child is struggling. Remember, when it comes to behavior, rarely does a young child want to be disciplined. So if they could control their behaviors, we tend to think that they would control their behaviors. When you see a sudden change in lack of control of your child's moods or emotion, it's important to say, why? What is your child trying to say or communicate to you? In recent months, school has looked very different for your student. We all recognize that. Some of the indicators that you might see on this slide are developmentally expected responses to the given circumstances of remote learning. However, if you notice dramatic changes in your child's interest in learning and their ability to concentrate, focus, their interest in socializing, their interest in engaging with their family at home or relatives, or participating in activities that they once very much so enjoyed, these are reasons to perhaps take note that your child's, again, trying to communicate to you that they could perhaps be struggling. You may also receive reports from school that your child is not engaging in the way that your teacher had once noticed. If you're seeing a shift in this behavior, it's important to recognize that your child could be, again, communicating to you that they are having difficulties with their emotional well-being. And now I'm going to pass this on to Whitney Keuson, who's going to share with you some care tips for the elementary student on how to deal with when your child is struggling at the elementary level.
Thank you, Darcy. My name is Whitney Keuson. I'm a school psychologist that began working for Utica Schools in 2002. The tips that I'm going to share are good care tips that promote wellness and stability in all children. All children benefit from these tips. They benefit from things like routine, which give predictable anchors in their day. These could include things like basic chores, where you have the opportunity to be creative and give them activities that interest them. Kids as young as 3 and 4 can participate in small chores. The opportunity for social time, where they can make and build positive interactions, is such an important thing right now. These could include things like texting or video calling family and friends. The opportunity to play board games or card games, so there's a reduction in screen time. The opportunity to watch a movie as a family, play video games together, make and share meals, or the opportunity to exercise and do a sport together. Diet, exercise, and sleep. Healthy eating and exercise to decrease the risk and alleviate symptoms of depression. And regulating sleep is so important to decrease depressive symptoms as well. There's so much research about the importance of sleep. It can decrease behavioral symptoms. A sleep routine is so important. And part of that routine is trying to establish a bedtime routine where you're going to bed at the same time, which includes turning off electronic devices at least 1 hour before bed, charging them somewhere else other than the bedroom, and that includes TV. Moving on to the next slide, another care tip that's so important is gratitude. Research shows that a grateful heart is a happy heart. Helping your child show gratitude to those around them not only helps us focus on what we're thankful for rather than what we've lost, it can change our brain chemistry for the better. It not only helps our child focus on the positives, it also helps us as well. Some of the indicators that we talked about, such as bedwetting and changes in eating habits, one of the things that might be important to do for those things is to rule out a medical explanation in terms that there's not an underlying medical cause. So for some of these things, it might be important to seek out your pediatrician just to make sure that there's not something medical as the cause of some of these changes that we're seeing. It's also important to care for your child's mental health just as much as our physical health. Paying attention to warning signs and seeking professional help. Reaching out to your school, your counselors, your social workers, your psychologists, reaching out to an outside therapist if necessary. April, one of our secondary counselors, is going to share some indicators to look for in older children.
Thank you, Whitney, for sharing the important and useful tips on how parents can care for their elementary age children. I'm April Rupp, a secondary school counselor. This is my 24th year in the district, and I have 2 teenage children who attend school in UCS. I understand the importance of making sure that my children, as well as my students, know they matter. One way I do that is by looking for indicators that they may be struggling. And I'd like to share some of those indicators with you now.
You may notice that many of the indicators I'm about to discuss are indicators that were already mentioned in the elementary portion of this presentation. You might also think to yourself, well, isn't this just typical teenage behavior? But as mentioned earlier, if this is new behavior for your child or it's increased or impacted their life in any way, it's probably reason to be concerned. So the first two indicators listed on the slide are ones that not only my students, but my own children have experienced most recently. Maybe your child's feeling very sad, hopeless, or irritable, or maybe overly anxious or worried. Those are things that they might be telling you verbally or showing you physically, or both. Sometimes children might act scared or fearful. They may even be having frequent nightmares. And those things are things you might not even know about unless you ask questions. If your child is showing excessive anger towards you or their siblings or their friends or family, it might be time to get involved. Maybe you've noticed that your child's using alcohol or drugs, or maybe you suspect that they're using alcohol or drugs. Either way, that's something that might be masking further issues, and that needs to be looked into. Sometimes students avoid people and they want to be alone all the time. And yes, those are signs of them just wanting to be teens. However, if you're noticing that they're excessively avoiding you and your family, maybe they don't want to come out of their room even when you're inviting them to come down for dinner or to have some family time, then you should be concerned. If your child hears voices or sees things that aren't there, those could be indicators that there's something going on. Now, with online schooling, we've seen an increase in students complaining that they can't concentrate or sit still or focus their attention. And that could be normal for the circumstance. But if you're noticing that these are issues with your child that they've never had before and you don't think it's due to the circumstance, you might want to ask some questions and do some investigating to see if they need some help. The final indicator on this slide deals with some obsessive behaviors that you might see in your child, such as washing their hands repeatedly, cleaning or organizing things over and over, or performing certain rituals, such as locking the door, checking it several times a day. Those behaviors may not be normal for your child, and if they are not, then you can look into it further and see if they need some support from you. I've noticed that some of my students have mentioned that they're feeling like they're falling behind in school or they're earning lower grades than usual. And sometimes that could be the circumstances. Maybe they're not transitioning to the virtual schooling or the remote schooling as well as they had hoped. But if that's not the case, it could be because they're anxious or sad or depressed. And those are areas to be concerned about. If your child's hurting other people or animals physically, or damaging or vandalizing property, it's time to get involved. Maybe you've seen some major changes in eating, such as they're overeating and they're gaining a lot of weight quickly, or they're not eating at all and they're losing a lot of weight, or maybe with sleeping habits. Sometimes teenagers love to sleep, but what we're talking about here is sleeping all throughout the day and night, not being able to get them up to participate in daily activities. Sometimes you may even hear your child up all night and they can't go to sleep, and that could also be an indicator that something's wrong. One of the things that I worried about in my own children is, were they going to lose interest in friends or things that they normally enjoyed? Because a lot of restrictions have been placed on our children. They haven't been able to gather with friends or participate in activities that they normally did, like basketball or parties. And so one of the things that you might want to look at is, have they found ways to connect with those friends and still do things that make them happy? And then finally, if a child ever talks about harming themselves or suicide or death, that means you should immediately get involved in the situation and find out what's going on and get them the help that they need. It's important to remember that some of these indicators might be normal behaviors for your child. They are teenagers after all. But if your child is experiencing one or more of these indicators on a regular basis and they're interfering with your child's day-to-day activities, it's time to get involved. I'm going to pass it over to Kim, one of my counseling colleagues, who will talk about what you can do now to help your child if you notice some of these indicators that I mentioned.
Thanks, April. One thing that you will see is that many care tips for secondary students are pretty much the same as those for elementary students. But one thing that I've realized is that these care tips are good for us all. Our world is so unpredictable right now, so the more predictability that kids can have, the better. They might grumble at you, but learning to be part of a household is very valuable to their sense of belonging. So having a schedule to follow that might involve chores and helping out around the house, it will actually help ease their stress, even if they don't think. Consequences should also be predictable, whether that's involving missing assignments, low grades on Friday, something that they know is coming. I have had parents in the past create a contract with their students with built-in rewards and consequences. And what that does is it eliminates the sense to argue, and it helps kids know what's coming. And you don't have to yell or argue. You can simply go back to the contract. One thing to remember is make sure you acknowledge the positive things they're doing. It's so easy to look at the negative and overlook the positive, but one thing that I hear from my students is no one ever notices when I do something right. We want to make sure that we're acknowledging when they do something right. So important for our teenagers is healthy food, exercise, and sleep. They are at a stage in their development where they're growing and their bodies need so much, especially at this time. Make sure they're getting plenty of fruits, vegetables, and water. It's okay for them to have healthy snacks during the day. If you've ever had a teenager like I have had, you know that they will eat you out of house and home. And that's okay for them to be able to do. There are so many studies that show the value of daily exercise on our moods. Try to aim for at least 15 minutes per day for them. That could be walking the dog, finding an exercise video, or an app on their phone. When they do something physical that actually helps them in their bodies and helps them improve their mood. And who knows, you can do that with them. Sleep is also so important, and we found over and over again that using devices right before bed leads to poor sleep. So I would make sure that you have them power everything down about an hour before bedtime, and make sure those devices are not being charged in the bedroom. They're very tempting, and it's very easy for them to want to check them, but that can lead to incredibly disturbed sleep, which can really affect their mood. Teaching our kids to be grateful also will help their mood. It's so easy to focus on everything that's going wrong around them. And when we teach them to focus on what's going right, it helps them learn to do that, which will help them overall. You could have a gratitude jar when everybody puts something in, or you could simply go around the table at dinner time and talk about something that everyone is grateful for. That's really important to help them look for the positive. Another way to help is finding ways for them to serve. That could be shoveling the snow of the next door neighbor, or helping bring groceries to a senior citizen who lives nearby. Helping them serve helps give them a purpose and helps them feel valuable, which are two things that are also really important to their overall mood. This could be a great time to help your children discover their strengths. Maybe they're good at art and they want to put art projects up all over the house. You could do that. Maybe they're good at building things, and this is a time to learn how to help dad or mom build things around the house. Maybe they're great at making TikTok videos, which can be kind of silly, but if they're having fun with it, that's really good. Our kids need positive reinforcement during this time, and it's not just about grades. Our kids also need social interactions. This has been a time when those are lacking, so maybe it's FaceTiming. We can take advantage of the technology. They could FaceTime a grandparent or a relative, or have Teams meetings with their friends. They can play cards with their friends online. Lots of opportunities for social interactions. As a family, you can play board games. We can bring out some of those old board games. They can play card games. You could watch shows together. You can play their video games with them sometimes. Bringing them into the kitchen to help you cook is another way to have fun as a family. This has been a tough time for everyone, but there's an opportunity to come out of it with closer relationships. It's really important that kids know that their parents are not superhuman and that we struggle too. Talking about how we are feeling lets them know that it is okay to feel negative emotions. And then it gives us the opportunity to share the strategies that we use to manage our own emotions. Finally, if you cannot help your child on your own, it is okay to consult a mental health specialist. Often mental health treatment has negative associations, but it's very important that we show them that treating mental health is just as important as treating our physical health, and lets them know that it's okay to look outside for help. Finally, we went right to the source, and we asked some UCS junior high and senior high students, what are some great things that their parents did during this time to support them? And here are their answers. We actually get the best answers when we ask them. They actually said that it was great when parents encouraged them to see a therapist. They said that it was really important when they felt listened to. A lot of times we want to fix what they're feeling, and they don't always need that. They just need to be heard. They want to be asked if they're all right, and they want to be reminded that they're loved. It's very important to remind our kids that we will get through this. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be a month from now, but we will get through this. They want to know that they're safe. So it's very important to talk about the strategies that you as a family and the school are putting into place to help them feel safe. And they wanted to be able to leave the house. So if you get the opportunity to go sledding or even to the grocery store safely, that's important. They need to get out of the environment that they're in. Now Catherine will share resources that are also available to you within UCS and within the community.
Thank you, Kim. Those were valuable tips. But before I go into the resources, I'd like to share one more tip with our parents and caregivers. All children feel blue or depressed sometimes. But if these painful feelings do not go away, then it may be time that your child will need more assistance to feel better. This is also the time that you might want to use the How Blue Are You card. The questions on this card can help you and your child decide if it's time to ask for more help. A youth answers 20 simple yes or no questions, then scores their answers. Intervention ideas are given based on the score that your child received. This is very simple, non-threatening, and a way to determine that your child may need more help. The How Blue Are You card can be found on the back of the High School You Matter guide. We have provided you with an abundance of information in this presentation. You heard on why it is important to address the emotional and mental health of our youth. The indicator signs as well as cure tips were shared for our primary and secondary students. Now I would like to take some time and share with you the resources that are available to you. Teachers, principals, school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, and district nurse are available for you. All these individuals are accessible through your home school. Utica Community Schools has a wellness page that can be found on the main UCS webpage. This page has a variety of resources focused on wellness, not only for your child, but also for you as parents, caregivers, for you as a family, and for the community. I encourage all families to check out this wellness page. One thing I truly encourage you to check out is the calming room. Once you enter the calming room, this is what you will see. Take some time to review all the activities available for our children and parents. Did you know that practicing yoga is important for kids for many of the same reasons it's important for adults? Yoga helps kids to relax, relieve stress and anxiety, sleep better, improve emotional regulation, increase empathy, and improve mood and affect. You might be asking yourself, what is visualization relaxation that is in the calming room? This is another way to help you feel calm and relaxed. This relaxation is used to create a picture in your mind. We all daydream sometimes or let our thoughts wander. You can use this skill to create a pleasant, relaxing image. You can also download the app for the calming room on your cell phone. Here are some more apps that will guide your youth to practicing good emotional and mental health. The Virtual Hope Box contains simple tools to help with coping, relaxation, distraction, and positive thinking. The Mood Meter helps you identify your emotions throughout the day and helps support you when you shift to a different emotion. Using the Mood Meter is quick and easy. My Strength is an app that you personalize just for yourself. It provides support for maintaining depression, anxiety, stress, sleep, and much more. As you track your moods, you will notice change over time. Finally, there are community resources that provide emotional and mental health assistance and services to you and your child. Please make sure you look at these resources that are available for you within the community. Our final resource for you are two guides. one for the elementary student and one for the high school student. Everything we presented in this presentation is available on these guides. We suggest that you download them from our wellness page and keep them close by for whenever you need them. On the back of the elementary guide is a visual copy of the calming room to remind your youngsters to go to the calming room. On the back of the secondary guide is the How Blue Are You card. Now we will go to Kim to end our presentation.
Thank you so much for joining us for our You Matter presentation. On behalf of Catherine, Whitney, Melissa, Darcy, April, and the entire UCS Wellness team, I would like to thank you for taking the time to learn about taking care of your kids. When we work as a team, we will become a stronger community. Our next event will be March 15th, and we'll focus on teaching our kids to take care of themselves. We hope that you and your children will be able to join us.